Following the events of the previous chapter, a few days after Rimuru's team obliterated Green Rebellion, Masayuki's party successfully conquered Floor 49. As planned, Masayuki had collected the full Ogre weapon series, which sent shockwaves through the entire world. The Labyrinth was becoming increasingly popular and was now viewed as a phenomenon by the masses. Miles and Rimuru seized this opportunity, recording and broadcasting edited battle footage, even hinting at paid, uncensored versions, generating revenue and further publicity. Raphael played an active role in analyzing and compiling the battle footage, producing videos that became massive hits. The influx of attention brought in an incredible amount of revenue for Rimuru, cementing the team of four as the most feared and legendary figures in the Labyrinth. Simply seeing Ramirez's colossal armor or Veldora's imposing form sent chills down challengers' spines. Not one to rest, Veldora came up with a wild idea. He wanted to upgrade his skeletal body into a golden skeleton. Although the concept was outrageous, Rimuru agreed to help, seeing it as a good opportunity for experimentation. Using materials from Diablo's personal project, Rimuru combined orichalcum, an alloy of magisteel and gold, with concentrated magicules to create an exceptionally durable and powerful golden skeleton. With this upgrade, Veldora's avatar became resulting in a golden skeleton. As they continued battling, Rimuru made a surprising discovery. Any skills learned by the avatars during their battles could also be reflected in their original bodies. This revelation motivated them to train even harder, further amplifying the fear they instilled in challengers. Despite his outward excitement, Rimuru kept reassuring himself that all this activity was purely for research purposes and not about sabotaging others' progress. Yet, the undeniable truth was that some challengers who entered the Labyrinth never returned. Eventually, the team shifted their focus from scaring off others to conquering the Labyrinth themselves. One sunny day, while the team was progressing through Floor 38, Rimuru received an urgent message. A voice on the other end of the magical communication link exclaimed, "There is a guest that requires urgent attendance." Rimuru sighed, realizing it was time to return to the office and deal with the unexpected guest. Following accusations of shirking responsibilities to play with friends, Rimuru decided to head to the office to clarify the situation. However, he was stunned upon finding Frey already there. Her sharp gaze swept across the room before locking onto Milim. A smile, distinctly devilish, curved on Frey's lips. The atmosphere instantly turned heavy as Frey began her interrogation. Milim, like a child caught red-handed by her mother, stammered to explain herself. Rimuru quickly distanced himself, denying any involvement, while Veldora and Ramirez, sensing the brewing storm, also retreated, feigning ignorance of Milim entirely. In the end, Frey captured Milim and dragged her back to their kingdom. Seeing his friend's tearful, pitiful expression, Rimuru felt a twinge of guilt, but also breathed a sigh of relief for avoiding trouble. Just as he thought the ordeal was over, Rimuru turned to find Shuna standing behind him, brimming with disapproval, demanding an explanation for his recent absence. Though slime doesn't sweat, Rimuru felt as though his body was drenched. Veldora and Ramirez, in perfect synchronization, made their escape under weak pretenses, leaving Rimuru alone to face Shuna's wrath. Realizing he couldn't get away with a flimsy excuse, Rimuru prayed to Raphael for salvation. Raphael calmly replied, "There's no need for an excuse, just be confident." At that very moment, Miles burst into the room, bringing a letter from the Council of the Western Nations. The letter invited Tempest to join the Council, a significant milestone for the nation. Following Raphael's advice, Rimuru exuded confidence, acting as though he had anticipated the Council's move. He deftly explained that his time in the Labyrinth was spent conducting research on Green Rebellion, which was hired by the Kingdom of Ingracia to investigate Tempest. This seamless justification, suggested by Raphael, convinced both Miles and Shuna. Grateful for Raphael's intervention, Rimuru averted disaster and turned the situation to his advantage. Most importantly, Tempest now stood on the brink of a groundbreaking opportunity to integrate into the broader world. The source of the latest letter could be traced back to the small northern kingdom of Siltrasso. It was here that Yuki Kagurazaka, head of the Freedom Association, was meeting Johann Rostia, one of the 5 great elders secretly manipulating the Council of the Western Nations. Yuki reported that Demon Lord Rimuru had grown suspicious of him. Despite his efforts to avoid direct confrontation, He confessed that Rimuru's military strength far exceeded his own, making any outright challenge a grave risk. At that moment, Mariabell Rosso, a scion of the powerful Rosso family and the architect of the Seven Luminaries' plan to eliminate Rimuru, entered the room. Her presence commanded respect, and Johann immediately adopted a cautious demeanor. Mariabell's sharp interrogation quickly unearthed key information. Veldora, the legendary storm dragon, had been resurrected and was now an ally of Rimuru. This revelation alarmed her. Veldora's immense power made Yuki to stop fighting Tempest understandable. Yet Mariabell deemed Tempest's rapid rise a threat to the Rosso family's influence in the Western nations. Johann echoes her concerns, questioning Yuki's ability to defeat Rimuru. Yuki implies that Rimuru alone might be manageable, but Veldora's presence changes everything. Mariabell are hesitating between neutralizing or eliminating Rimuru. Collaboration is considered a last resort due to their conflicting ideologies. Mariabell's ambition centers on establishing paper currency controlled by the Council, effectively granting the Rosso family control over the global economy. Rimuru's emergence and Tempest's rapid development disrupt this meticulously crafted plan, threatening to dismantle the foundation they've built over years. That led Mariabell to make the decision. If Rimuru could be separated from Veldora, eliminating him might become feasible, and this realization marked the origin of the letter sent to Tempest. About Mariabell, a reincarnated individual from another world, she was a ruthless financial mastermind who dominated Europe. She built her wealth by manipulating economies and exploiting human suffering, profiting from war, famine, and death. Her reign ended only when she succumbed to old age. Reincarnated into a new world as Mariabell Rosso, she was born a princess of Silt Rosso, a small kingdom in the Western nations. With her memories intact, her ambition reignited. Using her unique knowledge of economics and finance, she gained the unique skill greed. This skill allowed her to perceive the desires of others and manipulate them with ease. The stronger the greed, the easier they were to control. At only 3 years old, Mariabell recognizes Grambell's exceptional nature, realizing he is immune to her manipulations. Instead of deception, she reveals her true nature and the power of her unique skill. Grambell, impressed by her audacity and insight, forms an alliance with his granddaughter, sharing his own ambitions of a world ruled by the Rosso family under the guise of peace and equality. He reveals the hidden workings of the Western nations. This included hidden truths about the Western nations, such as the divine identity of Luminous, the so-called god, who was, in fact, a demon lord. Over the next 7 years, Grambell mentors Mariabell, sharing the full extent of the Rosso family's power and providing her with resources and support. By the time she turned 10, Mariabell had become a force to be reckoned with, second only to Grambell himself. About Mariabell's unique skill. Greed was undeniably powerful, but it was not invincible. It worked like a slow-acting acid, gradually corroding the minds of her targets. The more ambitious or greedy the target, the faster they succumbed to her influence. However, greed also had a dangerous limitation. It could forcibly manipulate a target for a short period by invoking their deepest desires, but once the effect wore off, the victim would regain their free will. If enraged, they might even retaliate and kill Mariabell. This limitation was why Mariabell never dared to use greed on individuals like Grambell, whose ambition and willpower exceeded her own. Similarly, it was ineffective against those with little to no greed. In such cases, Mariabell would have to take a slower, riskier approach, subtly interacting with the target to nurture their latent desires. This strategy, however, carried the risk of arousing suspicion, potentially leading to her exposure and demise. For these reasons, Mariabell failed to control individuals like Hinata, whose disciplined mind and minimal ambition made her nearly immune to greed. The same was true for Rimuru Tempest, as Mariabell discovered during her recent visit to the Tempest Federation. At the grand banquet during Rimuru's festival, Mariabell observed him closely and concluded that his desires were almost non-existent, far below the minimum threshold for effective manipulation. This revelation forced Mariabell to reevaluate her approach. Determined to find a way to manipulate Rimuru, Mariabell devised a plan to exploit his ideals and sense of responsibility. She accepted Yuki's proposal to send a letter inviting Rimuru to the Western States Council Conference, a ploy intended to draw him into her web of influence. The Western Nations Council was an organization composed of nations surrounding the Great Jura Forest. Its primary goal was to maintain financial and regional stability. Each nation elected representatives to attend monthly meetings held in Ingracia. Contributions to the council's budget were required, and wealthier nations paid more, especially if they wanted more counselors. In return, these nations enjoyed greater influence, particularly in decisions about resource distribution or aid during crises, such as famines or monster attacks. Larger nations benefited significantly from this structure. For example, in times of crisis, nations with more counselors received aid and protection first, leaving weaker nations to fend for themselves. This system naturally led to power imbalances, with smaller nations struggling to keep up. After Tempest's founding festival, the council convened an emergency meeting to discuss whether to allow Tempest to join the organization. The meeting quickly descended into chaos, with arguments breaking out between counselors. Hinata, a representative of the Holy Church, was invited as a witness because of her personal encounter with Demon Lord Rimuru. Though the Holy Church was not part of the council, so she could have refused, but this event was related to Tempest, so Hinata attended. Nations bordering Tempest, benefiting from its control over the forest's monsters and recognizing potential economic opportunities, largely support its inclusion. Similarly, stronger nations see Tempest as a potential ally and source of future profits. These nations had attended the founding festival and witnessed Tempest's prosperity firsthand. However, other counselors vehemently opposed the idea. They feared Rimuru's policies and believed Tempest posed a threat. Some accused neighboring nations of being bribed or influenced by demon lords. Many doubted Rimuru's promises, arguing that if the situation escalated, their nations would be the first to face Tempest's wrath. Hinata, understanding that each nation acts primarily in self-interest, remained silent, observing the council's dysfunctional dynamics. After hours of heated discussion and voting, the Western Nations Council finally reached an agreement to invite Tempest to join. While Demon Lord Rimuru was undeniably powerful and potentially dangerous, the benefits of aligning with him far outweighed the risks. For years, the Eastern Empire had loomed as a threat to the Western nations, held back only by the seal of Veldora in the Great Jura Forest. Now that Veldora had returned, he was no longer the destructive force of legend, but a tamed ally under Rimuru's control. Rimuru, therefore, represented a crucial advantage, a wildcard capable of countering the Eastern Empire's massive military power. The Eastern Empire had a long history of conquering and destroying countless nations without mercy. Recognizing the danger, the councilors decided that uniting under a shared goal was necessary to protect their lands. For them, an alliance with Tempest was a lesser evil compared to the threat of an imperial invasion. Hinata Sakaguchi, present as an observer, saw through the councilors' political maneuvering. It was clear to her that Johann Rostia, the influential Duke of Rostia, had orchestrated the meeting to manipulate the council's decision. By invoking fear of a shared enemy, the Eastern Empire, Johann rallied the councilors to unite under his proposed solution, Tempest's membership. The meeting played out like a stage drama. The council's decision, though presented as a united front, is ultimately the result of carefully manipulated fear and strategic maneuvering by powerful individuals. Sighing in frustration, Hinata promised herself that she would never get involved in something like this again. At the end of an exhausting day, as Hinata prepared to return to the Holy Empire, she was approached by a young man with blonde hair, accompanied by bodyguards. The man introduced himself as Elric, the first prince of the kingdom of Ingracia. He informed Hinata that the council intended to sound out Demon Lord Rimuru during the upcoming meeting and requested her to act as a bodyguard for the council members. In other words, they planned to provoke or even threaten Rimuru and wanted Hinata to ensure their safety. "I refuse," Hinata said firmly, maintaining a calm but serious tone. "The Western Holy Church, as well as the Holy Empire of Lubelius, have signed a non-aggression pact with the Tempest Federation. Furthermore, I strongly advise you not to anger Demon Lord Rimuru." Her words left Elric and his entourage stunned. They could hardly believe that Hinata, known as the Shield of Humanity, would outright decline to confront a demon lord. "It's a shame," Hinata added, "but personally, I've trusted Demon Lord Rimuru for quite some time now." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving the prince and his guards in shocked silence. As Hinata departed, unease crept into her mind. She understood that the Western nations were inviting Rimuru as part of some larger scheme, and a confrontation could potentially arise during the meeting. The thought of such a scenario left her deeply concerned. Back in Tempest, Rimuru was brimming with excitement after receiving the invitation from the council. He would be treated as an honored guest and was looking forward to touring the capital city of Ingracia. Accompanying him on this trip would be Benimaru and Shuna, with Soe operating in the shadows to provide updates on the situation. Rimuru felt a twinge of sadness at Ranga's absence, as his loyal companion was off helping Gobta. Gobta had been mentally and physically drained from Milim's intense training, which included mock battles with Carrion as part of her regular evaluations. Gobta had even tearfully confided to Ranga that he feared for his life if the training continued. On the other hand, Xian is also left behind due to concerns about her behavior in a formal setting. Various other key figures are unavailable because they are busy with their own tasks. Geld was occupied with supervising the construction of Milim's new capital. Diablo was off wandering in search of potential subordinates, his whereabouts currently unknown. Rimuru wasn't too worried, knowing Diablo would return instantly if summoned. Hakuro had accompanied Momiji to visit the hidden Tengu village. Meanwhile, Gabil and Midley were exploring the city of the Forgotten Dragon, where they hoped to tame wyverns. Gabil dreamed of creating an aerial cavalry by combining wyverns with the Hiryu and had been tirelessly researching to make it happen. With everyone focused on their respective duties, only 3 people, Rimuru, Benimaru, and Shuna, set out for Ingracia, planning to reunite with Soe upon arrival. Unbeknownst to Rimuru, however, a web of schemes awaited him in Ingracia, and this journey would be anything but straightforward.